So, the last time I saw my mom and sister in person, they were being escorted out of my sister's baby shower by two uniformed police officers. In front of literally everyone. My sister, Tiffany, was wailing about her new Pottery Barn nursery set, and my mom was screaming that I was a monster who was trying to ruin their lives. And me? I just stood there, holding a half-eaten cupcake, and thought, huh. So this is what it feels like to finally be free. The crazy thing is, it all started with a charity bake sale for a local animal shelter. Seriously. Kittens and cookies. That's how this whole nightmare began. Let me back up and give you the cast of characters. There's me, I'm 28. I have a decent job in project management, which basically means I'm organized, I like spreadsheets, and I'm the person everyone calls when they need something done right. Then there's my sister, Tiffany, who is 2 years younger. Tiffany is Well, Tiffany is one of those people whose reality is sponsored by Instagram filters and her own delusion. She's the golden child. The pretty one, the creative one, the one who could set the house on fire, and my mom would blame the smoke detector for being too sensitive. And that brings us to my mom. My mom is a world-class enabler. In her eyes, Tiffany walks on water, and I'm the family tugboat, expected to pull her ashore whenever she inevitably drifts out to sea on a raft made of bad decisions. For my entire life, it's been this dynamic. Tiffany messes up, I clean it up, and my mom tells me it's my duty as the older sister. So, the animal shelter. Every year, I organize their biggest fundraiser, the Paws for a Cause Fair. I'm talking games, adoption booths, local vendors, and the main event, a massive bake sale that I personally manage. It brings in a ton of cash. This year, for the first time ever, my mom and Tiffany announced they wanted to help. I should have known. I really should have. But a tiny, stupid part of me was hopeful. Maybe they were finally turning a new leaf. I put them in charge of the cash box at the main bake sale table. It was a simple job. Take the money, make change, thank people for their donation. I explained the system. A locked cash box, a ledger to track sales, and every $100, we put the excess cash into a sealed envelope and drop it in the main safe in the back office. Simple. Foolproof, even. The first red flag popped up about 2 hours in. I came by to check on them, and the cash box was overflowing. Hey guys, I said, trying to sound casual. Looks like you've made a ton of sales. Time to do a cash drop? Tiffany waved a dismissive hand, not even looking up from her phone. Oh, it's fine. I've got it under control. My mom chimed in, smiling that tight smile she gets when she thinks I'm questioning her precious Tiffany. Don't fuss, dear. We're doing a wonderful job. People are being so generous. I felt that familiar knot in my stomach. It's just that it's a security risk to have this much cash out in the open, Mom. Honestly, Tiffany sighed, finally looking at me with pure annoyance. It's a bake sale, not a bank heist. Relax. You're making people uncomfortable with all your hovering. I bit my tongue and walked away. I told myself I was being paranoid. They wanted to help, so I should let them help. An hour later, I came back with one of the shelter volunteers, an older lady named Carol, to do the official cash drop. I opened the ledger. It said they'd made about $750 in sales. Great. I counted the cash in the box. There was $650. I blinked and counted again. Still $650. That's weird, I said, trying to keep my voice light. We seem to be short about $100. Tiffany immediately got defensive. What are you implying? That I took it? No, of course not, I said quickly. Maybe someone was given the wrong change, or maybe we just miscounted. My mom jumped in, her voice sharp. Well, I'm sure it's just a simple mistake. You know how you get when you're stressed, you can't even count straight. Carol, dear, you and I can recount. I'm sure my daughter just made an error. They recounted, and of course, it was still short. My mom declared the ledger must be wrong, that Tiffany couldn't possibly have made a mistake. Tiffany huffed that I was accusing her of being incompetent, and the whole thing was so embarrassing. They made such a scene that I just dropped it. I took the $650 to the safe, made a note of the discrepancy, and silently prayed it was a one-time thing. Spoiler alert, it was not a one-time thing. The next phase of their help involved managing online donations. We had a portal set up where people could donate directly to the shelter via credit card or PayPal. I gave Tiffany the login credentials so she could track the incoming donations and read out the names of donors to thank them publicly. A few days after the fair, I was reconciling the accounts. The online portal showed we had received around $3,000. But when I checked the shelter's bank account, only about $2,000 had been deposited. $1,000 was just gone. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a simple miscalculation at a bake sale. This was a significant amount of money. I called a family meeting at my mom's house. I laid out the paperwork on the coffee table, showing the discrepancy. "I'm not accusing anyone," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. "I just need to understand where this money could have gone." "Tiffany, you were the only other person with access to the account." Tiffany stared at the papers, then looked at me with wide, innocent eyes. "I have no idea what you're talking about. I just looked at the numbers. I didn't handle any of the money. But the deposits I pressed. Some of them never made it to the bank." That's when my mom stepped in. She put a protective arm around Tiffany. "Honey," she said to me, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Are you doing okay financially? You know, if you're in some kind of trouble, you can just tell us. There's no need to make up these stories." I felt the air leave my lungs. I was speechless. "What? Mom, you think I took the money?" "Well," she said, patting Tiffany's hand. "You're the one who manages everything. You're the one with all the passwords and the access. It just seems strange that you're the only one finding these missing funds. Maybe you've just been under a lot of pressure and got confused." Tiffany nodded eagerly. "Yeah, I've been worried about you. You seem so stressed. Maybe you moved the money to a different account and forgot?" "It's okay, we won't be mad." They were gaslighting me. In perfect sync. They were calmly and deliberately trying to convince me that I was either a thief or I was losing my mind. The worst part is, for a split second, I actually questioned myself. Did I make a mistake? Was I so tired that I'd misplaced $1,000 of charity money? But then I looked at my sister, at the smug little glint in her eye, and I knew. I knew they were lying. "I didn't take it," I said, my voice cold. "And I'm not confused." The meeting ended with them telling me I needed to take responsibility for my accounting errors and fix it. They suggested I should probably just deposit the missing $1,000 from my own savings to make things right with the shelter. The next couple of weeks were hell. They started a quiet smear campaign. My mom would call her aunt and say she was so worried about me that I was overwhelmed and making mistakes with money. Tiffany told our cousins that I was being investigated for financial irregularities at the charity. They were building a narrative, brick by brick, where I was the villain and they were the concerned family. Volunteers from the shelter started treating me differently. They'd give me these pitying looks. The shelter director, a wonderful woman named Susan, called me into her office. She was very kind, but she had to be firm. She said some of the board members were concerned. She told me we had until the end of the month to sort out the missing funds, or she'd have to file a formal report. I felt like I was drowning. My own family was methodically destroying my reputation and setting me up to take the fall for a crime they committed. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I was scrolling through social media, trying to numb my brain when I saw it. Tiffany had posted a photo album. The title was, "Surprise! We're going to Bali." There she was, posing with 2 plane tickets, a brand new set of designer luggage next to her. In another photo, she was showing off a new high-end laptop and a camera to capture all the memories she'd written in the caption. I did some quick math. The tickets, the luggage, the electronics, it was thousands of dollars. Tiffany worked part-time as a receptionist. Her husband was a freelance graphic designer. There was absolutely no way they could afford a trip like that, let alone all the new gear. And that's when I saw the date on the tickets. They had been purchased 3 weeks ago, the day after the fundraiser. The fog in my brain just lifted. It wasn't anger I felt at first. It was this cold, sharp, terrifying clarity. I saw everything for what it was. The fake concern, the gaslighting, the smear campaign. It was all a calculated plan to cover their theft. They stole money meant for abandoned, helpless animals, and they were going to let me go to jail for it without a second thought. That was it. The people pleaser in me died that day. The dutiful daughter, the responsible older sister, she was gone. And in her place was someone who was about to burn it all to the ground. I didn't confront them. Oh no, that would have been too easy. They would have just lied their way out of it again. I needed proof. Hard, undeniable proof. I spent the next week like a detective. I contacted the online payment company and, after explaining the situation and providing my credentials as the event organizer, I got a detailed transaction report. It turned out the missing $1,000 hadn't just disappeared. It had been refunded. But it wasn't refunded to the original donors. It was refunded to a single PayPal account. An account registered under my sister's email address. Bingo. Then I thought about the bake sale. The missing $100. It seemed so small in comparison, but it was the start. It was sloppy. I remembered that Tiffany had been texting a lot that day. On a hunch, I looked at her public Venmo transactions from that afternoon. And there it was. A payment to her nail salon for $95 with the emoji of a painted nail. The timestamp was from right around the time I first noticed the cash was short. She had literally paid for her manicure directly from the cash box. I now had the motive, the Bali trip, and I had a digital paper trail for the online theft. The cash was harder to prove, but the Venmo transaction was a pretty damning piece of circumstantial evidence. I took all of this to Susan, the shelter director. I laid it all out on her desk. She looked at me, her eyes full of sympathy, and said, "What do you want to do?" The old me would have tried to handle it quietly. I would have begged my sister to return the money, tried to save my mom the embarrassment. But the old me was gone. "I want to file a police report," I said. "And I know exactly how we're going to make sure they can't lie their way out of it." Which brings us to the baby shower. A month later, everything was seemingly back to normal. I had told my mom and Tiffany that I had found the accounting error and used my own money to fix it. I apologized for stressing them out. They were so relieved. They patted my arm, told me they knew I'd figure it out, and that they were proud of me for taking ownership. The condescension was so thick I could have choked on it. They invited me to Tiffany's baby shower. It was going to be a huge affair at a fancy restaurant. All their friends, all our family. A perfect performance of their perfect life. I accepted with a smile. The day of the shower, I was a nervous wreck. But I just kept picturing those shelter animals and the cold look in my sister's eyes as she tried to frame me. Susan had coordinated with the police. They were going to arrive at 3 p.m. sharp. All I had to do was set the stage. The party was in full swing. Tiffany was glowing, opening piles of expensive gifts. My mom was flitting around, the proud grandmother-to-be. Everyone was laughing and drinking mimosas. At 2:50 p.m., my mom tapped a glass for attention. "I just want to say a few words," she began, tearing up. "I am so proud of my beautiful daughter Tiffany. She is so generous and has such a big heart. She is going to be the most amazing mother." This was my cue. After she finished, and everyone was dabbing their eyes, I stood up. "I'd like to make a toast, too." The room quieted down. All eyes were on me. I raised my glass of water. "I want to echo my mom's words. Tiffany has such a generous heart. In fact, her generosity is just breathtaking." I smiled directly at her. "You all know we just had the Pause for a Cause fundraiser. Well, what most of you don't know is that Tiffany and my mom were our secret biggest donors." I could see confusion on people's faces. My mom and sister exchanged a nervous glance. I continued, my voice getting louder and clearer. "They contributed over $2,000. It was amazing. I mean, it was so clever how they did it. Tiffany, for example, took $100 in cash from the bake sale and donated it directly to her manicurist. That's thinking outside the box." A few people gasped. Tiffany's face went white. "And the online donations," I went on, my voice full of fake cheer. "Instead of just donating, Tiffany found a creative way to transfer $1,000 of other people's donations directly into her own PayPal account. I believe that money then went on to help a very important cause, the Send Tiffany to Bali Fund. Isn't that incredible? Let's give them a round of applause for their creative philanthropy." Dead silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Every single person in that room was staring at my mom and Tiffany, their mouths hanging open. Tiffany was the first to crack. "You're lying," she shrieked, standing up so fast her chair almost fell over. "You're a jealous, vindictive liar." My mom jumped up to defend her. How dare you? You come into this celebration and tell these horrible lies about your own sister. You've been trying to sabotage her for years. They started screaming at me, a torrent of insults and denials. It was exactly what I expected. They were putting on the performance of their lives. And that's when the restaurant doors opened. Two police officers walked in. Susan from the shelter was right behind them. One of the officers looked around, his eyes landing on our table. We're looking for Tiffany last name and Mom's last name. The whole world seemed to slow down. The screaming stopped. Tiffany looked like she had seen a ghost. My mom just stared, her face a mask of disbelief. The officer walked over. Ma'am, we need to ask you a few questions down at the station regarding a complaint of theft and wire fraud filed by the community animal shelter. And that's when the chaos erupted. Tiffany started sobbing, real, ugly sobs. My mom started yelling that it was all a misunderstanding, that I was a sick, twisted person who had framed them. Their friends were whispering, our family members just looked horrified. As the police led them out, my mom turned to me, her face contorted with rage. You did this. You destroyed your own family. I just looked at her, and for the first time, I felt nothing but pity. No, Mom, I said, my voice quiet but firm. You did. The aftermath was messy, as you can imagine. With the evidence I provided, they didn't have a leg to stand on. They confessed, hoping for a lighter sentence. They were convicted of fraud and theft. They had to pay back all the money, plus a hefty fine, and were sentenced to 500 hours of community service, which, in a perfect twist of karmic justice, they have to serve at the city sanitation department, not the animal shelter. Their Bali trip was canceled, obviously. Their reputation in our small town is completely shot. Some of my family tried to guilt-trip me. I got calls about forgiveness and how family is family. I blocked their numbers. Family doesn't frame you for a felony. My real family turned out to be the people at the shelter who stood by me, and my friends who listened to me cry and still believed in me. I cut my mom and sister off completely. No calls, no texts, no holidays. It hurts, in a way, to mourn the family I thought I had. But the feeling of peace? The freedom from the constant gaslighting and manipulation? It's worth it. My life is quiet now, and it's mine. So yeah, that's how I ended up getting my own mother and sister arrested at a baby shower. It was dramatic, it was awful, but it was